Good afternoon, and welcome to Man Cave Meditations. Let's dive in. So earlier today, I was watching one of my favorite shows among many, the David Pakman Show. And during the course of the show, there was about almost a half an hour interview with a young man named Nathan Taylor. Nathan Taylor, cybersecurity expert, veteran, and this young man was a co-founder of the Election Truth Alliance, which in so many words is was founded based upon the irregularities of the 2024 election. Which Trump won. And again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I know I've shared things in the past that could be seen as conspiracy theories, and maybe I probably could have helped, just let not have spoken some of these things out loud, but I felt the need to share. But I'm not saying I know, but I feel that I, along with many other intelligent, discerning Americans, felt that the results of the 2024 election were, again, it didn't make sense, right? Based upon if you looked to the lead up to the election, even though she only had 107 days, Kamala and Walz, after Biden dropped out, 107 days to run, to campaign. The energy that was behind her and the movement, and the anti-Trump energy, and you had Trump like bumbling and mumbling on stage and singing to Dancing Queen, and the World War II Madison Square Garden rally. It's just like, and then to win all 7 swing states, plus all the irregularities that were reported, obviously vastly underreported by the media. And again, I had no proof. So what am I going to say? Or any of us? There's no proof. We didn't have any proof. Well, after watching this interview today, and I have seen past people speak about, how it could have been, it could have been taken, like, suppressing voter rolls, and a lot of the think of Jim Crow era laws that just allowed anybody to just purge people off the voter rolls and not allow people's votes to be counted. I had seen all that and had taken that into account, but again, nothing stood out. I mean, you just have to. It's also, as I've said before, we have, whether we're trained or we're conditioned, but trained to just truly believe in the integrity of certain systems of our governance. One of which, the pinnacle of which, is our elections. Our elections they are fair and free. They must be so. Right? But when you hear this man talk, again, Nathan Taylor, Election Truth Alliance, check it out. Not just this interview with Pakman, but the site, YouTube channel. When you start to look into it, you realize that a lot of these systems, these voting machines, they're they're computerized. Like so many things are in the digital age. And the software, from my understanding from listening to this, is basically like 1990s Windows, or 2000, like 20 years ago Windows, Microsoft Windows software. It's nothing special, So a couple of, actors with malintent, if they could get access to it, and they can, switch this and switch that, get into like the nuts and bolts of the machines, of the software, which supposedly after 2020, be it Sidney Powell or other people, they were actors that got access to a lot of these systems. And if you have, say, if you have access to Dominion, it was the $780 million lawsuit that Fox, that won against Fox News for defaming Dominion. Dominion, one of the great, the voting machine companies in the country. I think there's only a couple of them. Dominion, maybe Smartmatic, I'm not sure. But there's not a lot. And it's supposedly, if you, per this young man, Nathan Taylor, if you gain access to some of these systems, which, if they gained access in 2020, they would still have access to now, because these machines have not been replaced. I watched that video, and I watched a couple others, and again, it was showing. I mean, one man in one of the videos was showing how you can basically get in there and hack one of these machines, and switch something around so that everyone who's voting on the machine, they could be pressing Kamala Harris, and it would actually go to Trump. Switch votes. Again, take nothing from me. Watch the video. Find out for yourself. Right? But again, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, the amount of trust that we put into some of these systems, the trust that we just assume, again, that people are going to do the right thing. They're going to act in the most dignified way possible. Has been, under the age of Trump, one of the greatest Achilles heel, I would say, of our whole system. So, if we can assume for a moment that these systems were compromised, if they were compromised in 2024, they may have been compromised before. I don't. Again, look at watch Nathan Taylor, watch his videos. I keep going back to that, but that's the truth. Watch the videos. Find out for yourself. Do your own research. But assuming that some part of that has been compromised, some part of that has been compromised to the degree that the individual's vote could be manipulated in such a way that the results of a free and fair election could potentially be compromised. Okay? And supposedly, from my understanding and from listening to this young man, Nathan Taylor, each, per law, that each of these ballots has to have a corresponding paper ballot. Yet post-2024, the results, there were no recount. There was no audits were requested. Even though post-2020, the Republicans took the Democrats to court several dozen times. But yet Kamala and her team didn't choose to ask for one audit. Nothing. We're just going to lay down and just, in the faith that our election systems are all good to go, based upon the nefarious actions of this felon, Again, he was running for president to try to keep out of jail. To just assume, and with the help of the, billionaire. And again, I saw, you just have to look at these videos. It didn't seem that difficult. I'm not a computer guy. I couldn't do it. But it didn't seem that difficult to hack into one of these systems if given the opportunity and just screw it up. And that these voting machines would go under testing periods. And yet similar to the, was it the Dieselgate or the diesel something with like Volkswagen? Remember with Volkswagen, they had that whole scandal with the emissions, right? And it turned out that during the tests, when they were running for emission tests with the Volkswagen vehicles, the software was manipulated to such a degree that during the tests, the emission tests, everything looked right as rain. But then once you got out there on the road, the emissions were crap. They wouldn't pass anything. Right? And that this young man, Nathan Taylor, he was saying that very thing. That you could do the same thing. You could manipulate the software, this election software, in the same way, so that during a test, because supposedly, per state, they would run these machines through tests. They manipulate them in a way that during the test they would look fine, but then afterwards they could be, they could be manipulated without anyone knowing what's going on. And just in this half an hour interview with Pakman, the amount of the statistics that Nathan Taylor was bringing up, I mean, again, find out for yourself. Look into it for yourself. But man, I'm not saying I was sold on it or completely convinced, but my head turned. And my head doesn't turn that easy. And before seeing this today, I really hadn't given this that much of a thought. I had before and this and that, but because, again, as I said before, it just didn't make any sense. How that man could just take all 7 swing states. And then based upon the amount of people that voted for, that would vote for Trump and then vote for other Democratic candidates below. Again, but that's all. Yeah, there was no proof behind it. It just didn't make any sense. Okay. And again, we simply want to assume as Americans that all these things that we've put on such a high perch, our three branches of governments, our elections, right? Again, every ballot is every digital ballot, digital vote must be corresponded with a digital with a paper ballot. Well, then how come no audits have been done? Supposedly, Pennsylvania, they've requested this Election Truth Alliance has requested an audit from Pennsylvania, which was one of the states that had the greatest anomalies. And Pennsylvania said no. Or whoever was in charge of it said no. And there's a lawsuit going on right now at a district in New York. They're trying to get these, because if you could just show that there's major anomalies in one district, well then, hopefully, other districts will do recounts. But the point of having a paper ballot, if there's no audit, then there's no way to find any anomalies. And there was no audits done. We just said, the Democrats said, everything must be fine. Looking at your opponent, how could you say that? Everything must be fine. You cannot expect. You must inspect. Do not simply expect. We must inspect. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that the election was done, nothing like that. I'm not doing this, that. Yeah, it was a bit. Even though I felt it strongly that the kid who shot Charlie Kirk, this and that, there was multiple people. I still feel that. But you know what? I probably shouldn't have just said it. In hindsight, I apologize. I probably shouldn't have just said it out loud. That's not doing anybody a service. It's just creating ideas. It's just floating conspiracy theories. Whether I feel it or not, I see it or not. And so in an attempt to correct that, I invite anyone of the few that watch this to not only go and watch this Nathan Taylor's Pakman's interview with this Nathan Taylor, but look on his YouTube channel. Find out for yourself. Make your own opinions. And if in the prayer, and I have no proof of this either, that anyone who has their own platform could be watching this video, but in the case that is so, then I would also, in order to get this out to the American people, or at least get them thinking, get them looking into it, to invite this gentleman or whoever else onto your platform to talk to him. Okay? And there was another, I have to find that, see if I can find the name. Janessa, anyway, there was another young lady who, let's see if I can find it. Anyway, but there are those out there, and supposedly right after the election, and this is what really got me going. Right after the election, there was a group of these cybersecurity professionals that wrote to Kamala Harris, begging her and her campaign to look into doing just an audit of the election when it was still time to do it. And they said no. Why? And I hear her, nothing against her, but I've seen her recently. I saw her on the Rachel Maddow show talking about just this past week, and she was talking about the capitulation of all of these, titans of our society, the corporations, the universities, the whoever it is, just folding before Trump, and that stuck with me. And then when I saw this interview today between this Nathan Taylor and David Pakman, I thought to myself, well, you were presented with all this potential evidence of fraud, election, crimes against our election, and you had the power, you and your campaign had the power to do something about it, to at least hold an audit, right? So that not only you, but the American people could get at the truth. And you said no. Is that not capitulation? Is that not capitulation? And if that is not capitulation, then what is? Because all this current capitulation is stemming from that first capitulation, that original sin. Yeah, so if we have a convicted rapist, adjudicated felon, criminal, sleazeball to the core that surrounded himself with sleazeballs, people who should be in prison or in straitjackets, who've been running this country into the ground for the past 7 months, is not the original sin because we simply accepted, or the people in power accepted, that this was a free and fair election. The American people deserve to know the truth. And the truth will come out. It will. Just like the bubble from the bottom of the carbonated beverage will rise to the top, so will the truth rise to the top with this. It will. It will. And so I invite any one of the few people who are watching this to go and check out that interview, if you haven't already, with David Pakman and Nathan Taylor, and to find out for yourself and make your own decision. Spoken enough. Lots of love. God bless. Bye-bye.